welcome back to Comic Crackle. I'm your host Kirby, and today you're watching Motherbox News, your trusted source from the source. Today we're going to be talking about The New Gods issue 6 by Ram V Evan Cagle and guest artist Felipe Anandre. Before we dive into issue 6, let's cut to a question that's asked for Ram V that's by me. How dare you? Who do you think you are? In regards to Lightray seemingly dying in the last issue. What's that? Ram didn't want to comment on that? Alright, well let's go into today's issue. The first page of issue 6 makes me relive the trauma of issue 5, showcasing Karok Ator killing Lightray once again. Thanks guys. The narration suggests that Lightray knew what he was doing, making his sacrifice so that Highfather and the rest of the New Gods could leave New Genesis. It's from that moment that we then pick up with Highfather, Metron, and a lot of the other New Gods as they're in an escape pod. Highfather is stricken with grief, but Metron says that Highfather will need to pry open the skies for them to escape because the way to Orion on Earth is now closed. Akala is able to make a force field that blocks their pursuers from following them. At the same time, Karok Ator is watching this happen, seeing as they leave New Genesis. Highfather is then able to make a portal that will open and transport them over to Earth. Once the New Gods are able to vacate New Genesis, the perspective then switches over to the Black Racer. For more information regarding the Black Racer, let's cut over to lore correspondent Kirby. Kirby? Thanks, Kirby. Hi, I'm Kirby, lore correspondent. So today I was asked to talk about the Black Racer. So the Black Racer actually debuted in The New Gods issue 3. To put it as plainly as possible, he's the personification for death of the New Gods. Towards the end of the original series of The New Gods by Jack Kirby, there was a fight between Orion and Kalibak, and really they were fighting to the death. At the same time of their fight, it was showing that the Black Racer was speeding towards them, but we didn't know who was gonna win the fight and who the Black Racer was taking, one of them or both of them. And then at the end of the fight, it's shown that the Black Racer takes Kalibak and he effectively dies. Now obviously he's not the only personification of death in the DC universe, as we literally have death, which is one of the endless, but he represents death for the beings that are born of the source, this making up New Genesis and Apocalypse. Now within Jack Kirby's original series, he also had a human persona that he would change into, which is Sergeant William Walker. William being a veteran from Vietnam that lost his mobility and confined to a bed, being taken care of by his sister and her husband. Now it needs to be noted that William predates the Racer, so he was just a normal guy before that, and then he became Death. Get it? Like, yeah. Anyways, thanks Kirby. Now back to the issue. Black Racer is then presented to Lightray in almost like this purgatory setting where his spirit has not been able to go to the source just yet. This is when the Racer says to him, "This day, Solace, though I'd hoped the chase would last forever, this day you will have your answer." And this is when Lightray responds, "Tell me, Racer, do you know what happens when one of us dies?" It's then that we watch as the Racer explores into this purgatory setting, and the narration even giving it a name of the Waiter Room. It's often a river or a channel or a tunnel, and it takes many names. Waiter Room, the liminal space between being and unbeing. I was made here, picked from floating ideas and concepts. The notion of ending, of death, chosen by the source to traverse this boundary world, nestled along the fault line of the eternal conflict, a clear path to the source, bounded on all sides by a great darkness. Do you understand, Solace? I am not one of you. I have never been a god. I am death. I have no desire to be revered, only to be embraced. And though it seems inevitable, I have always reminded those that can hear me, don't fear the Racer. Okay, so this kind of throws a lot of ideas at you all at once, and I figured I would try to break it down just a little bit. So to my understanding, when the New Gods die, they go to the Waiter Room. Basically, this is allowing for the Black Racer to escort them to the source. The starting point of this conversation began in issue number 5, with Lightray asking all of the New Gods if they knew what happened when they died. Lightray and the Black Racer had basically had an agreement. The day that Lightray dies, the Black Racer will explain it to him. This, of course, being the time that the Black Racer catches Lightray. It's presented in a way that's almost like a friendly game of tag, but, you know, if he touches you, you die. On top of that, it's also solidified within the narrative that the Black Racer is not a new god. He is a manifestation of the source and a collection of ideas. He's not a god to be prayed to, but instead an inevitability. And I also have to take a moment to talk about Felipe Anandre's pencil work, as well as the coloring decisions that are done by Francesco Segala. It really plays up and sells the narrative of being in this alternate realm. The differentiation between Evan Cagle's pencils and then immediately switching over to Anandre's, but also it sells this narrative that we're in a totally different plane of existence. This is also the moment that we watch as New Genesis begins to fall, as Karok Ator is now demolishing as he said he would in the last issue. Continuing the conversation, Lightray is now begging for his life to the Black Racer, asking for him to return so he can protect the people of New Genesis. The Racer then states, "That is not for me to decide, Solace. The light at the end of the tunnel, the source. Though it has happened rarely, the source could send you back. The concerns of the living are for you no more. There are many perils between here and the end of the journey. Unborn and unliving concepts roam the Waderum current, ready to devour the real, the existing, to imbibe some of their essence, to break through into the world outside. And then there is darkness. Though it is forbidden by the first covenant, the darkness's will and desire is always bent upon this place. We are surrounded by it, the essence of the lived, those that existed. The darkness forever seeks to devour it. That which cannot return to the source is lost forever. But here in the Waderum, it cannot interfere. It cannot cross the... It's at this moment that this darkness that the Black Racer is talking about then holds him captive. It's able to bind the Black Racer in the Waderum. Basically, it's taking control of the realm that the Black Racer is able to control and be the herald of. This darkness, of course, is coming from Karok Ator and the Niktari, which are outside of the realm of life and anti-life, but instead are all-consuming. They are unlife. I was explaining this recently, talking about life, anti-life, and then unlife. Think of it as life being free will, anti-life being control. Obviously, both of these are two ends of the spectrum, but they need the living to succeed. They are parts of the source. Unlife is outside of the source. It doesn't need the living to succeed. All it needs is consumption. Effectively, what the goal of Karok Ator and the Niktari is to decimate anything that derives from the source. Moving back to the story, we then pick back up with the New Gods in the escape pod on their way to Earth. Highfather awakes to Shadowfall at his bedside. She says that they're going to make it to Earth and see Orion soon, but before she can even finish her thought, Highfather is immediately asking about Lightray. The only response that she can have is tears. This is when Highfather then reflects on the life and the importance of Lightray. He was always a sweet boy, you know, an eager child, but strangely ungifted, born without the powers of a god. It's why I encouraged their friendship. I wanted Orion to have a friend who did not see him as a god or a devil, but just another child, untainted by power. As children, they stumbled upon a nest of apocalyptian soldiers who had hidden themselves on New Genesis. They fought valiantly. Orion, even at his age, was fury itself, but they were only children. When they brought the boy to me, he was all but gone, broken and limp, and nearly lifeless. I did not think he would survive. Orion sat by his side the whole time. The boy, Solace, simply would not die. I was wrong, you understand? I had always been wrong about the children having been born without powers. He awoke as Lightray, and he needed no curing from me. He brought himself back from the brink with a sheer yearning for life, and he taught Orion a lesson I would have struggled to teach. He taught the boy that he could always hold on to hope. If you've been following the channel for any amount of time, or even following me on Twitter, you will know that I always talk about the relationship between Orion and Lightray. And this isn't just a kind of fandom brain thing where I just ship these two people who don't really have a relationship, but it's so much deeper than that. In the original series by Jack Kirby, there could be understandings and undertones of Orion and Lightray having a bond that is deeper than just really good friends. Lightray is able to complete Orion, and this is what I mean. Orion is the manifestation of a hero that doesn't believe in himself, dooming him to a life that he never wanted. Orion is the son of Darkseid, raised on New Genesis. You can see how this complexity would unfold even within the pages of Jack Kirby's New Gods. He doesn't see himself to be able to be equal to the people of New Genesis because he feels like he's predestined to follow the same path of Darkseid. There are very few people that accept Orion for who he is, and one of them, the one person that Orion holds the closest to him, is Lightray. If Orion is brash, Lightray is welcoming. They're basically the yin and yang of personalities. They complete each other. Lightray accepts Orion not because of who he's predestined to be, but for who he is. We see this in Jack Kirby's New Gods, and specifically within a page where Lightray sees Orion's true face after he faces off with Calabac. Orion is ashamed, and he says, "I know you saw my face, and I'm ashamed to see it as well." But Lightray basically just tells him, "I see old scars and I see new scars, but you are still my friend at the end of the day." And then if you flash forward to Walt Simonson's Orion, we see this duality of both men. They are the completion of the other. And even as Orion tumbles down and starts fulfilling the destiny that he believes he's predisposed to be, following the steps of Darkseid, Lightray is there to save him. So it's not a joke of, haha, gay 'cause funny. I really believe that this is a relationship that could be good queer representation, but also showing complexity in people and not just relegating them to stereotypes. So, because I have Motherbox News and a direct line to Ram V, I reached out to him and asked for his take on the relationship between Orion and Lightray. And he said,
I don't know that I'd simplify Orion and Lightray as being complements of each other. I think the endeavor as a writer and a dramatist is to find nuance and complexity rather than present neat, flattened ideas. I'd say there are elements of male friendship, rivalry, queerness, and perhaps even a few resentments present within Orion and Lightray's dynamic, and I'd be a fool not to take advantage of them all. So beyond anything else, I'm interested in portraying these characters as interesting, multifaceted, complex personas. I wouldn't say Orion is pessimistic, only that perhaps his greatest fear is to be hopeful. I would say Lightray is the eternal optimist, but even hope and joy's greatest value can only be understood if you understand on some level fear and despair. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I'm not interested in viewing characters as cutouts that neatly fit into story-shaped slots, if you will. The interpretations of Lightray and Orion's dynamic is necessarily an interpretation and therefore left to the readers. And it is to Kirby and Simonson's credit that their stories allow for the room for readers to dissect and appreciate their own readings of these characters. So I wouldn't want to point readers toward any one interpretation, if that makes sense. Orion Lightray's dynamic, to my reading, has absolutely had undertones of queerness to it, and perhaps by design or by nature of the genre, it has never been spelled out, and I think that is beautiful and important. It encourages readers to make up their own mind, to invest pieces of themselves into the story so that the line between their experiences and those of the characters is blurred. And once you've read it that way, it creates this dramatic tension and undertones that are difficult to articulate and yet undeniably powerful. As always, I draw from a wide range of sources for inspiration. The shonen dynamic of intense rivalry and friendship being inextricably entwined is here. I also remember thinking a lot about Chabon's Mysteries of Pittsburgh when I was reading through these characters, and then there are bits and pieces of that Midnighter and Apollo dynamic there as well. So yeah, a lot of different places. I'm glad people are enjoying this dynamic, although we haven't even had the characters really meet face to face yet in the story, but I'm sure that will happen in due course.
Thanks, Ram. Now back to the issue. We then cut back to the Black Racer as he's being consumed by the unliving within the wait room. He says that the unliving is cutting him off from the source, but he hears as Lightray is still pleading for his life, with his final words saying, "No, this cannot be the end. Not like this. You must get me back. The darkness cannot touch me. I am the light, and I refuse to dwindle. For so long I stayed in shadow, perhaps content to look on as others acted in my stead. Perhaps I have this chance left yet. Now get up. Our race is not yet done." This is when Black Racer is able to separate himself from the all-consuming unlife and then getting a scythe, because yes, he is basically like the Grim Reaper, so now he has a cool scythe and I absolutely love it, and I love this design and I love the colors, and oh my god. Anyways, back to the issue, and this is when the Black Racer then says if they're in the wait room, then they need to play by the rules of the realm, meaning that they are now at the whim of all life, and it is the Black Racer to determine what to do with the life in this realm. Finally, the Black Racer is able to present to this wall, seemingly coming into contact with the souls as they leave to go into the source. He says, "I wanted to win. I am the racer after all, but not like this, not like this. If you can hear me at all, if there is a way to bring him back, you should, because if you won't do something about it, I will." With us seeing that the Black Racer is up against this wall and we see the language of the source that is written, it's then that we cut to Van Horn, Texas. The narration states, "Otis Tennant dreams of falling, an endless descent, impossible to wake up from, no sky above, no ground beneath. He has had this dream before, but tonight, underneath, he can sense something, a maw, a yawn, the black sigh of death. Then he awakes. The sky is falling, and death stalks the living once again." Obviously, he's presented with this black glow in his eye, seemingly indicating that the Black Racer is now taking the form of this man named Otis. As lore correspondent Kirby talked about earlier, that is not his usual personification. So it is interesting, and this is the first appearance of this persona for the Black Racer. This also opens up the question about what the Black Racer is doing in the land of the living, and seeing if the life of Lightray is somehow going to be revived within humanity. Also within the scene, we see as a TV is reporting on something that's falling from the sky, and then we transition over to Orion and the Justice League and Scott and Barda. We pick back up where we left off in the last issue, with Orion throwing a punch at Mr. Miracle and Superman catching it. This is when Superman says to him, "I've taken a hit full throttle from you before, and that wasn't it. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you really weren't intending to kill a child. Now why don't you stand down and we can all find out just what in the heck is falling out of the sky." It shows as all of those New Gods members and Kamal and his parents are all standing around with Superman watching this crater come down. It's then revealed that this is the spacecraft that left New Genesis, holding the remnants of the rest of the New Gods. As the New Gods' craft is entering the atmosphere, they put out a message that goes through the mother boxes that is listened to by Big Barda and Mr. Miracle and Orion, saying that they don't have control of it anymore and that they need help. Superman then responds, "I know, we've got it covered." And then we see as Superman and the Green Lanterns and Star Sapphire and Cyborg, and oh my gosh, this is a very long list, are all helping the craft as it comes into the atmosphere and land. And that's where we leave off with The New Gods issue 6. Now don't forget to go and pick up issue 7 on June 18th. That's all for me, and as always, trust the source.